Hey everyone, welcome back. My name's dustinkreis, and today we are going to do a game discussion, and we're going to talk about this game right here, Final Fantasy X, the HD remaster, on the PlayStation Vita, the PlayStation 3, and soon to be on the PlayStation 4. Of course, brought to us by Square Enix. And this lovely PS Vita copy was gifted to me by Danny Devil May Pie for Secret Santa of last year, and I was really excited to see this in there because I was waiting for this to drop down to like the $20 mark because I am a huge old school Final Fantasy fan. I loved Final Fantasy back in the day. Final Fantasy VI is still my favorite game of all time, and of the Final Fantasies, 8 and 9 are really close to being, top tier games for me as well. But I felt like, as a young guy, there was a point where Final Fantasy started to fall off for me, where the magic just kind of disappeared. And this was that point for me. I don't know what it was about the game at the time, but the entire time I was playing it, I was like, it just felt like there was too much, emphasis on the graphics and everything, and the story kind of suffered, and it just didn't feel as epic as the previous Final Fantasies. It kind of felt like a step back in a lot of ways for me. So I was really excited to get this and throw it in and sort of see if maybe that was just me at that time, and maybe Final Fantasy X has gotten better, maybe I'm, more of an open-minded gamer and like it more. And long story short, the answer is no. The way I felt about Final Fantasy X then is exactly how I feel about it now. It just feels like diminishing returns. I don't know what it is. I love the battle system. I love the swapping out of characters. I love the sphere grid. I hate Titus. I kind of am ambivalent towards the storyline, except for Yuna. She's the only character that really gets any character development in the storyline. And the world of Spira, I don't connect with it. And the enemy of Sin, I think he's just kind of he's not a very, we're used to charismatic villains like Kefka and Sephiroth, and even Kuja, and Sin's just kind of this, this personality-less creature that just destroys, and it's kind of boring. It's kind of boring. And we talked about in the podcast, the latest episode of the podcast, and we just talked about, I talked about how my general feeling for the game is just bland, and compared to other Final Fantasies, this one's just kind of, I don't know, there's no real spikes, there's no real moments where you're like, oh my god, there's no big twist in it. It just kind of goes on an even line and just continues to go. It's weird. It's weird how how ambivalent I am towards Final Fantasy X. I'm not saying it's a bad game. Like I said, the gameplay I actually really enjoy. It's just the storyline. I just cannot connect with the storyline. And part of the big problem is this dude right here, Titus. He is just annoyingly, one of those annoyingly optimistic characters, and he has no real development. He just kind of stays at that annoying level throughout the game. Like Luke von Fabre in Tales of the Abyss, he starts off really friggin' annoying, but gradually he grows up and becomes a really good character. Titus just stays right there, man. And I don't like his character design. I think that it's just the stupidest looking character design for a hero in any RPG. He just looks like, Kingdom Hearts, he looks like a Kingdom Hearts reject. And I like the design of the Kingdom Hearts characters in those games. It feels right in those games. In a Final Fantasy, this ridiculous outfit that he's running around in just seems stupid. So I don't know. Really, it's hard to say what I really just... There's just something about Final Fantasy X that I just don't care about. And I don't know. But anyway, the storyline. You play as this douchebag Titus. And he is the star blitzball player of the Xanarch Abes, and that's become kind of a joke within my group of friends because we're all playing Final Fantasy X about the same time. And this mysterious creature attacks his home of Xanarkand, and he is whisked 1,000 years into the future to a world that has been ravaged by sin, and has to go on this journey with one of many summoners who is preparing to take this journey to defeat sin. He's traveling with Yuna, and all the characters, I feel like Yuna is the only one that really has a backstory and really has a through line with her tale. All the other characters, there's kind of a backstory for them, but there's no development with the characters. And that's part of the problem I have with the storyline. If you're going to give me 7 characters to have in a party and you only develop one of them to a substantial level, one character is not going to carry the game, especially when the game removes that character from your party for very specific events. And it's like, you're just stuck with all these people you don't care about. The villain, who there are multiple villains in this game, as there are in every Final Fantasy. The sort of, I guess, main villain for a while, the main antagonist. He's just, I don't know. I just never really get a sense of like threat from him. I never really feel like he's really going to do anything that bad. He's just kind of, okay, well, now I'm going to fight you guys and I'm going to kill you guys, and that's just how it's going to be. And he never, like, his voice just never gets, he never gets excited about anything, and it's such a flat character for a villain. I'm trying to keep it somewhat spoiler free, so if you actually haven't not played Final Fantasy X and you want to, you will not know who I'm talking about. But yeah, there's just something about the storyline and the journey of these characters, and it just never connects with me. Titus, as your entry point, being the main character, just never really pulls me into the story. And Yuna, the one character that has development and is probably, one of the best characters in Final Fantasy, period. She's just not enough to carry the entire game. Just not enough to carry. I played 32 hours, and truth be told, I didn't finish this version. I just got to a point and I said, you know what, I'm just kind of done. For at least now, I have no ambition to finish this. I don't want to collect the secret Aeons. I don't want to get the celestial weapons. I don't even want to fight through sin. I just don't. I just don't want to do this anymore. So I put it back on the shelf. But I have beat the game before. I beat it back in 2001 or whenever it came out. And yeah, I don't know what it is. This is sort of the beginning of the end of Final Fantasy, because then 11 was an online game, which I never bought. 12 was a game that I've never finished. 12. I need to go finish 12. But even that, I didn't really feel that much of a connect to. 13, 13's kind of a love it or hate it game. And then 14's online again, which I thought was okay, but I didn't want to spend that much time into it. So really, this is kind of the beginning of the end of Final Fantasy for me. And we'll see what 15 brings, if it's good or not. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. Gameplay-wise, this goes back to the 3 party members system of 7 and 8. But it's actually really kind of cool, because you can swap out the other characters on the fly. And I wish more RPGs did this, because I personally really like it. I think it adds a lot more strategy to the game. And sometimes when you're in a dungeon and you have the certain 4 characters, you're just you feel locked, and you feel like, oh, I didn't make a good choice. But you're kind of locked in. You're like, all right, well, I gotta go anyway. So the ability to swap out the characters and have each character have sort of a strength and a weakness, really, really like that system. I wish more RPGs would do it. What else? Oh, the sphere grid system, leveling system. I love the sphere grid system. I think it was one of the, even when the game first came out and I was kind of ambivalent towards it, I think it was a fantastic leveling system. I really do. If you want to skip certain spheres, And, you know, if spheres are limited, you know, but basically that's only early in the game. Eventually you'll have like 99 spheres all the time. You can skip over, like if you're doing Titus, you can skip over the magic stuff and just focus on his attacks, you know. Not really a point to that. It doesn't, because you only have a certain amount of moves you can do each time. It's set up like a big board game. And instead of gaining levels with your experience, you gain sphere levels. And for each sphere level, you get to move one space on the board. So, you know, really, you're just saving your ability spheres and things like that. But I don't know, for some reason, it's really addictive to move around the sphere grid, because if you pull back and zoom out in the sphere grid, you can actually see your progress. And I think that's what makes it so addictive, is that you can see the progress that you're putting into the game. But aside from those two things, because there's always a different leveling system in each Final Fantasy, aside from those two things, it's a tried and true Final Fantasy. You know, you'll see the same monsters that you've seen for a long time. And, I mean, the gameplay isn't drastically changed all that much by the swapping of characters or the sphere grid. Each character sort of has a role. Titus is just sort of your generic hero character. Yuna's your white mage and a summoner wrapped into one. Lulu's a black mage, and so on and so forth. Once you get Auron in your party, he really never leaves your main battle party, because his strikes are just so incredibly powerful that, like, you just use him to bulldoze through everything. And that's mainly what I did. I really focused on getting Auron's strength just through the roof, and then once I got done with his sphere grid, I kind of took him into Titus's sphere grid and moved him around there a little bit and really kind of beefed him up that way too. But yeah, as far as gameplay goes, this is another thing that really kind of drove me nuts about Final Fantasy X back in the day. It is linear, and this was the first time Final Fantasy was really this linear. Maybe you can make an argument that Final Fantasy V is kind of linear in a way, but this is the first time, you know, this is a big production, you know, first of the next generation on the PS2, and amazing graphics. And what the trade-off is with these amazing graphics is that they can't do all that they previously did. But even like Final Fantasy VIII had amazing PlayStation 1 graphics, but it still had like an overworld, and you still felt like this big open world, and you really don't get that with Final Fantasy X. It's a very linear, not as bad as like Final Fantasy 13, where you're just running down corridors the entire time. But the world is a lot more linear in this game. No overworld map. You just kind of move through areas to, like, if you're moving from one town to another, you don't go to an overworld map and just, you know, walk over the world. You actually go through like a forest or something, and then you get to the next town. The Tales games do this a lot, and it's something I'm getting more used to. In fact, nowadays, playing a game with an overworld map actually feels kind of daunting, because I'm so used to playing RPGs like this that to have an actual overworld, sometimes I feel like I just have no idea where to go. But as far as the gameplay goes, I really do like Final Fantasy X. I do think it's addictive to level up on the sphere grid, and really that's a good thing, to have an RPG that the leveling, the grinding is addictive, because you have to do it in RPGs, you know. So to have a good system in place that kind of makes you want to do it is really nice. Graphically, the game looks phenomenal. A really good HD remake. They didn't just go back and use the same character models and things and just kind of update them. These look like brand new character models, brand new assets they put into the game. Some of it is a little weird. I think like a lot of the characters look better. I think Titus actually looks worse. It looks like he has some kind of lip injections or something. But for the most part, the game is absolutely gorgeous, and you would not think it's like 13 years old. You would think it was made just yesterday for the Vita. It really does look amazing. But like I said, this is where I felt like Final Fantasy really started to focus more on the visuals and not so much the gameplay and the storyline. I really feel, especially back in the day, I really felt like people were paying more attention to the graphics than anything on this one. But it really looks really sharp, really crisp. It really does not look like it was made 13 years ago. So that's a good thing, you know. Sometimes these HD remakes, if they don't like really put the time and the effort into it and just kind of do like a shitty port, you know, it doesn't look all that great, but this one does really look that good. The audio, what can you say? This is the first Final Fantasy that had voiceover, and you can really tell. I mean, you could tell that they were trying to find their footing, because it's hard unless they go in and like redo the faces to match the English dialogue, which, you know, they're not going to do. The voicing is really, the phrasing of the characters is really weird, because they have to try to talk while the character's mouth is moving, and you'll get some really weird phrases, and like one line a character will talk like really slow, and the next one it's like, all right, let's go, you know, like stuff like that. And it's just a weird, you know, caveat of the lip syncing, you know, so they have to try to make it match, but sometimes it's completely way off. The voices, for the most part, I do like the voices of the character. I don't like Titus's voice, but that's just me. And I don't really like Seymour's voice. I think he just sounds way too lethargic, and he's just not that interesting as a character, because he sounds so lethargic and like he doesn't, I don't really care about anything, you know, kind of like an Eeyore in a way. But the music, I think this was the last Final Fantasy that Uematsu worked heavily on. Like, he would do like a song for each of the games, but really the music started to shift to other composers. And I think that this was the last one that he did the full score on. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's true. And really, this is one of the last times that the Final Fantasy music has been gripping. I remember being at Distant Worlds, and when Xanarkin came up and they started playing Xanarkin, me not being a big Final Fantasy X, I still remember that music like making my chest kind of get that feeling, you know. And it was a really good piece of music, and it's definitely one of the best Final Fantasy themes out there. But yeah, the music is really good, probably one of the strong points of the game. But I don't know, Final Fantasy X's been a weird one for me, because I feel like everyone kind of, whenever they come into Final Fantasy, that game is kind of their favorite. You know, a lot of, like me, I played Final Fantasy 1 and I played Final Fantasy 4 back in the day. I owned Final Fantasy 1 and I rented Final Fantasy. It was at that point in time as Final Fantasy 2. And I rented it several times, and I'd get stuck in it, or the rental would be up and I have to take it back. But Final Fantasy 3, or now as we know it's 6, I actually owned that game and really sunk a lot of time into it. So that was really my big first Final Fantasy that I just fell in love with, and that will always be my favorite of the series. And I feel like a lot of people have that nostalgia with this Final Fantasy, but you know, I went through the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, and the PlayStation, and most of the PlayStation era before I played this, because my PS2 was actually my first Sony system. And so I don't have the nostalgic drawl that this game kind of has. And, you know, we do it all the time. We trade on nostalgia, but I don't have that. And looking at this game objectively, for me anyway, it's really sort of the gradual decline of Final Fantasy over the years. Is kind of where the needle stopped, because 9 was just flat out amazing, just phenomenal, and then 10 was kind of just and I don't know, you can kind of understand how maybe it would be like that, because Square was really focusing a lot of energy on the Spirits Within at that time, and I feel like 10 kind of suffered because of it. But you know, I would rather have the Spirits Within be Final Fantasy X, have that be the game. And, you know, they could have made this into a movie. That would have been fine for me. But anyway, you know, I don't know what to say. It's still a good game. And I think a lot of you guys out there love it. And I think a lot of you guys out there who haven't played it would probably really enjoy it. But for me, it's lesser Final Fantasy. It's not up to what I want to be a Final Fantasy. And I feel like since 10... all of the Final Fantasies have been like that, just kind of diminishing returns. So hopefully 15 turns things around. I do think I will throw in X2, 10-2 at some point in time, because I never really finished that game, and the battle system and the leveling system of that does get kind of addictive. Even though, like Chance said in one of his recent videos, the game just doesn't make sense. Like when you look at the world and how the world is compared to 10, it just doesn't make sense at all. But, you know, whatever. Square, what are you going to do? But anyway, that's really it for Final Fantasy X. You know, it's just going to be one of those ones that I just never, it just doesn't connect with me. And it's always going to be like a little bit of a dent in my heart, because you want to love certain games and then you just realize that you just can't. So anyway, that is it for this video. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.